Silos develop oftentimes naturally, and you need to spot them in your organization.
A group within an organization are completely segmented from the rest of the company. They may not cooperate as much. They just may be on a different page.
It's a very, very dangerous situation.
You're for a world of hurt.
People who seek to use that kind of thing against you, they need to work somewhere else.
Break down the silos.
Yes, sir.
Less stress, more time, more money. Welcome to the Cashflow Contractor Deep Dive.
Martin, we had an interesting conversation a few episodes back with Robert Keyes, just a fascinating man. But one of the things he talked about that he does inside of the acquired companies that he acquires is remove silos. And I thought that would be an interesting topic for our audience to dive deeper into. And so many people are probably like, what do you mean? I'm not storing grain. You actually have a really good grain story. I know you used to run grain elevators in Nebraska. Our audience probably knows that because you've mentioned it a lot. But tell me about the time, maybe did you or did someone else go and step out on the grain?
Okay. I was wondering if that's what you were. Yeah, there was a federal grain inspector. They come and measure up how much corn you have in other crops. And he went to one of these, it was 200 feet in the air, round white silos, bunch of them. But he opened the hatch on the top of one and got in and walked around on the grain and probed it and looking for samples and got out. Came down, was talking to the manager of the elevator and telling him how much money they had in each bin and each silo. And he told him, well, you've got X thousands of corn in silo 6. The guy goes, no, it's empty. He goes, it's not empty. I got in there and walked around and got samples. And he goes, oh man, it's empty. And what it was a bridge. You know, the grain had crowned on the top. He's 200 feet in the air and he's poking it, right? You can just imagine if he'd have poked it
in the wrong spot
at the right place and started going, a 200-foot fall. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually just saw
that's a silo story.
I just saw some software or like essentially like a drone, but it's not a drone. It's like a remote control car that runs around the silo on top and makes sure that doesn't happen, so people don't fall through.
Yeah, you don't want to be in grain bins. That's they don't so much, but they used to blow up all the time and explode. And they
how was that?
You look quizzing that you didn't. Yeah, everybody knew that in the second half of the 20th century.
Okay.
But what happens was dust, grain dust is typically, it's carbon, right? It's either starch or protein because it's very finely messed up grain. Well, carbon can burn, so on, right? Well, there would be a certain level of concentration of dust in a silo at the top, which is just like being in a piston in a car, right? And if something sparked, like a bearing went out and got hot, or a piece of metal broke off and dragged by, somebody even dropped a wrench, some of the things like that, set off a spark. And if conditions were exactly right, the silo would blow up.
Yeah.
And I mean, big bang. Yeah, a lot of people were killed. And they really solved that mostly by dust handling. He used to just blow it out in the air. And anyway, containment bags and so on. But so I haven't heard of one blowing up in a long time. But of course, I'm not in that country
silos
anymore.
Blowing up inside of companies all the time.
There you go. Hey, great segue.
Trying to segue.
Did you plan that, or did that just happen?
Didn't plan it.
There you go.
Didn't plan it. So we should probably define what a silo is inside of a business. And really the best way that I can describe it for, especially in larger organizations, you see this, but it's essentially where a department or maybe a team or a group within an organization are completely segmented from the rest of the company. And they have, a completely set of information that the rest of the business has. They may not cooperate as much with a different department in the business. They just may be on a different page. And I think that's the best way that I can think about it, is that there's very little shared vision inside of a company because there's so many silos. And, in contracting, what this could look like is that the people that are doing estimating are completely separate from the people that are on the job, and they're not talking together. And so the people that are doing estimating don't know that there was a bunch of, misquoted work on the previous job because they weren't connected. Maybe the person that's doing dispatch is too disconnected from someone that's out in the field and isn't understanding how much time it's taking these people to get started each day. But there's a variety of examples of silos, but that's essentially what happens, where you don't have shared information, shared communication, shared vision across every department inside of your business. So yeah, Robert Keyes talked about removing silos. Where have you seen a lot of silos inside of some of the companies that you work with?
Well, one of the things, it goes back to lean manufacturing, which same thing, it doesn't have to be manufacturing, it can be processes. But silos in manufacturing would be each operation, each machine, right?
Right.
A CNC that cuts something, and an edge bander, and somebody who builds boxes, and somebody who builds finishes. And you can see that each of those operations have their own culture, they have their own skill set. And if they are indeed a silo and not concerned with their customer, the next person in the process, then what happens is that's where all the problems in lean manufacturing show up, is in between, right? Guys know how to operate their section correctly and efficiently. They don't realize that what they're doing is placing a burden on the next one downstream, right? Who knows how to operate their section well and efficiently for them, but they might be creating problems for the next person, right? So that's one of the first things in lean manufacturing and also in lean processes that you look for. Where are the silos, the people with the common culture, common alteration, or operations, common knowledge, the things that they need to know? Where are those, and how well do they communicate with the next guy in the stream? As to where do I see it? If you have a company of more than 2 people, it's not terrible all the time, but boy, it's a tough one, because people will clique up, usually according to their operations and their culture. And when that information doesn't get out properly, it's really rough.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about how they form in the first place, right? I think the biggest reason that I see why a silo starts is that there's not a shared vision. We don't know where we're going. We don't know what our shared goals are, what moves the needle for our company as a whole. And so because of that, each person inside of the company finds their own goal. They see the business and their role as a specific, in a specific way. And so they focus on that. So then you get all these different focuses that aren't shared. And so because everyone's focused on a different destination, a different primary or priority for their role, and they don't see how they connect to each other, they create a silo. And that silo is optimizing for what that person is focused on. And because they're not connected, that's how you get a lot of silos. I think another one is just connection. There's not enough connecting points. The person that runs the front desk never sees the person that's out in the field. The person in accounting never talks to somebody that's in marketing. There's never a team meeting. There's never opportunities for people to connect. And so those silos never have opportunities to share information, to even know who each other are and how they operate.
Tell you, one of the classics, and we're more contractors than manufacturers, but one of the classics, and it was even there in Caterpillar, an organization, engineers versus sales guys.
Yes.
Sales guys out in the field and say, hey, man, the people want this. And the engineer says, you don't know what you're asking for, And one of the things I heard quoted all the time was, can't you just, like a salesman, can't you just make that 6 inches wider? Well, engineer, yes, I can. You just modified 450 parts. Can't you just, right? That shows that lack of understanding of, don't understand what engineers don't understand what the salespeople got to go through, and the salespeople don't know what the engineers got to go through.
Well, and I think a big one that happens, it's very similar, but on the contractor level, especially the smaller contractor level, this happens, the sales is typically done by the owner in many respects, and they're trying to please the customer. They're always thinking of ways that they can add value. And you have that great quote that I love, that you can't add value, you can only add cost.
Right.
And what they do is they start promising, value to the customer, but then for the team that's actually executing on that, a lot of times that value is something they've never done before. It's this new thing that's just greater and better than what they did in the past. And there's a lot of headache that comes with that, and you can't standardize. And so there's kind of this silo between the owner and the team that's out in the field actually doing the work. We'll go back to some examples of that in a second. I think another one, and kind of goes into this, but in delegation, or really abdication, like you talk about, where you just say, well, take care of it. Like, you're responsible for that. You take care of it. You don't really follow up. You don't really understand what's going on. You're not really giving them clear instructions or a clear vision of what you want to be done. You haven't defined what the key result and outcome is when you delegate something. When you've abdicated, you're creating silos because you don't know what's really happening. And so whoever's doing it is the one that has the knowledge of it. But because you're not following up, because you haven't given clarity, they're creating a silo, and then you're on the other side of it. And with that, I think another way that silos stay intact and don't, they're built, but they really just grow from there, is a lack of evaluation. Not going back and evaluating a job and how it went, not evaluating your employees on an annual basis or maybe semi-annual basis, not having one-on-ones with your employees. If you're not having that connection point and revisiting and reflecting on the work that's being done, you're unable to see the silos. And so they just continue to build from there. So those are my 4 things that I think about and why silos exist and how they're created. So in terms of, why is this, an important thing to break down? I think it causes a lack of efficiency inside of a business. You're unable to be as efficient as possible because you're not on the same page. And so, how many times is there are we going back to the job site to do something that we forgot about? Are we, not having the right price on a project because we didn't understand what was actually happening? We didn't have the materials on site because we didn't communicate correctly with the supplier, with the person on the ground. What are some of the things? Go ahead.
Well, it's at a global scale, but the number one reason people leave jobs, 53%, is unclear expectations. Okay?
Yeah.
And when you have silos, that's what you're building into, is unclear expectation. Assuming goodwill, like people, sometimes silos are formed with not goodwill, in which case you have a culture problem, you need to ferret out the problem. But a lot of times if people don't clearly understand what is expected of them, you can't hold them accountable for not doing it, because people generally are trying to do the best they can. And those silo walls, whatever caused the partition, different operation, different department in the company, different locations, that's where the opportunity arises, that there are unclear expectations.
Yeah.
Jeff Finney does a great job. We've talked about it. The cabinet maker from Tulsa. I don't know how many, he's got 49 guys now or something like that. But every so often, I'd say quarterly, he has them literally line up in the shop from the beginning operation, receiving material, all the way to across the shop, shoulder to shoulder, to where they load it on the truck for delivery. And each person looks to the right and says, that's my customer. What can I do to make your job easier? So he's literally broken down the silos by making a connection between the different operations. Onboarding or accepting delivery of materials is completely different than loading and running a CNC, is completely different than building boxes. It's completely different than putting into drawers and finishing, shipping, and all that stuff. So it's a great way to break down silos, but in that case, they're formed by operations. And breaking them down is the way to recover that efficiency and get everybody on the same page and start looking across the literal limits of the CNC area to the building area, seeing across that and say, oh, we're all one continuous operation. We're not just me over here with my problems.
Yeah. I think this is one that can really touch so many aspects of a business. I think having a very clear vision and goals for the team really helps with breaking down silos. But then even just the culture of your company is really important here, where the values are shared by everyone. It's easier for people to get along and to want to connect with each other. Because if they don't want to connect with each other, you're going to have a hard time getting people to buy in to the vision, but then also to just share what's going on with what they're doing. And if you can foster that culture of open communication, of people that sound the alarm quicker. I mean, a great example of a silo is when people hide bad news. Like that can be so bad, and really when your problems are in a silo and they're not able to be seen by everyone, then they just compound and they don't get solved quicker. I think also it's your operations. Like if you don't have systems that allow for information to be shared across the organization and inside your company, where it's easy for everybody to find, easy for everyone to access, easy for everyone to understand, then only the people who understand that information in that silo are going to be able to use it. I think this is where, on a practical level, what does this look like? I think communication is such a big one. Having some sort of internal comms communication system is so valuable for us, and for several of our clients, we use Slack. Some people that's email, but it's so easy for us. We organize it by client. And then we also, for larger projects, we organize our communication by project, and anyone can go and see that information at any point. We can tag people. We can share that information very clearly inside of there. And then, so that's a great tool for communication. But then in terms of the project information, we use a project management tool, and everything can be seen there. Tasks can be assigned clearly with guidelines. There's due dates. There's expected time. They can track their time on it. And so it's very clear who's working on what, when, and where they're at with that task. And that just allows it to be very easy for everyone to know where they stand and where the people around them stand. And if they're waiting on something, when to expect it to be done. That's breaking down a silo in many ways.
Yeah, I think you just used them, the old-fashioned, how many are there? 5 W's?
Who, what, when, where, why?
Who, what, when, where, and why. Seriously, everybody in the company doesn't need to know everything, the intricacies of the operations. But it is a great idea for the leaders of the company to say, this is who is doing this. This is when we expect it. This is where it's being done, if that's a relevant factor. When it needs to be done and why we're doing it. And they can understand, at least you have the same targeted goals, right?
Yeah.
And Simon Sinek says, and this is a little different than the way he meant it, but people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
Yeah.
And there's truth in that for your customer, but that's also truth in that for your internal customer, right? Why am I doing this? This is causing me effort. Why am I doing it? Well, when the guy or gal downstream receives it and shows you how that helps them, there's value to that. You place that. I remember my father-in-law was a machinist, and he worked for New Holland by the way, I don't own New Holland, never did. Although my old landlord in college thought I did, and I got great preferential treatment. Anyway, he was a machinist for New Holland, and he took me to a tour through the shop. They were building combines shop, huge factory. Anyway, we came up to one machine that was so far built, and he goes, "Hey, that's my gear." And there was a gear that drives the shaker pans. That's what he made.
Wow.
And he'd never seen it. And I think he was thrilled that's not all he ever made there, but that's what he was making at the time. He didn't know where. It's just a hobbed out gear, had to be made to these tolerances. And that's what he did. Walked through there and he was thrilled to see it because now he knew what it was doing.
Oh man. Yeah. I mean, if you can share the output with people throughout the process, like a testimonial from a customer, like, wow, we absolutely love our new addition. It's allowed us to sleep better at night because we don't have to have a crib in here with our, baby inside of it and we can't sleep anymore. Like, wow, I made an impact on someone's life because I delivered the materials for that job, whatever it is, sharing those wins. I mean, that just for our Slack channel, we have, opportunities to share family things that are going on, what's going on in our life. Hey, this project went well. Hey, we heard this from so-and-so. And it's just a really valuable thing. The other thing I was going to say
there's
is,
one thing. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say another area that's really important is data. And that's one where it can be very difficult without the right tool. But if you can share data with your team, they always love that because it helps them to understand where we are and how we're performing. And if you've given each of your team members KPIs to hit, if they have real-time data to see their KPI, that's extremely powerful. And if you can tie that very clearly, show them how that KPI ties to the vision of the company or to the profitability of the company, or whatever your goals are, that can be very, very empowering because they feel like they're a part of a bigger purpose, a bigger team, and they see exactly how they can make that team successful. So anyways, having that data can be as simple as having a dashboard. Something that we helped set up for somebody once was, the big thing that they wanted was, they wanted build work. They wanted to say, hey, we've sent this many invoices, this much dollar amount of invoices this week. And in order to send the invoices, they had to install the job. And in order to install the job, they had to produce the job in-house. And in order to have the job to produce, they had to have the sales. Well, all four of those numbers in real time, the amount billed, the dollar amount of jobs being installed, and the dollar amount of jobs being produced, and the dollar amount of jobs being sold was on a dashboard on a screen, and they could very easily see it. And now everyone knows exactly where we stand. And so then you got guys that are doing the production in-house that are saying, hey, you got to send some invoices. Like, look, we installed the job, but we don't have the invoices out yet. There's just accountability there. And
Right.
I think that's a great way to break down silos.
Yeah, the one other thing too is if they see how their efforts fit in with the team, that's an incentive. If you can find a way that their efforts clearly contribute to their well-being, in other words, they have clear KPIs that they can understand, close connection between, something that happens now, not something that happens at the end of the year, and perhaps they're rewarded. And incentive pay can work when it's done right. It's a big problem if it doesn't. I wanted to bring up one other kind of silo, and it's a nefarious silo, a bad deal.
Mm.
And a lot of times, I can think of examples in the IT department.
Yeah.
The owner's sitting up here, and the tech stack's been building. He doesn't know what license. I have a friend who had a business with a long-time IT manager. Sysadmin, anyway, whatever the head honcho back in the computer department. Pretty good sized company. Well, Microsoft comes in and audits him and bills him for $280,000 worth of licenses. And he's, what the hell's this? Why? They did have they were using them, but they've been using them illegally. This guy just kind of, oh yeah, I would do this. Plus all their data, a lot of things have been cobbled together and built by this guy over the years. And basically he's the only guy who knew how to run it, right? That's a very, very dangerous situation. It doesn't have to be IT. It can be the only guy in the world who knows how the hydraulics work, or the only guy in the world who knows how shipping works. But when you have that, where they can build a fiefdom and hold you hostage,
Yeah.
you need to nip that in the bud really quickly and find alternative ways around it for the safety of your company.
Yeah. I mean, this is why systems matter so much, and they support getting rid of silos. But client recently has, they got a key man, project manager, who does a lot. I mean, a very, very sophisticated in the project management. The role is very broad, I guess is what I should say, where it covers everything from dispatch to material orders to, client management, and then the actual project itself being managed. So quite a bit of, variety there. And just stopped showing up one day, right? And what do? Right? And that's a silo whenever you've relied on someone so much. It's
Right.
almost that abdication role where you haven't given them systems and way to measure each project and the work that they were doing, where you can go and find the information you need, right? And you've delegated, but you've really kind of abdicated, and you're not following up, and there's no evaluation and no way of measuring where they currently stand, and no way of passing on projects to the next person. That's where, you're for a world of hurt. And now you have jobs that are expecting to be done tomorrow, but your project manager's gone. Who steps in?
Hey, did he ever come back?
Not as to this day. I think it's been 2 weeks. To tomorrow, it'll be 2 weeks, I believe. And
Yikes.
no word as of now. I maybe I'll get an update, but yeah. So you got to be able to take over that stuff. So that's kind of the hurt of silos and fiefdoms, like you mentioned. So yeah.
So I think kind of the overarching message is silos develop oftentimes naturally, and you need to spot them in your organization, begin to break them down through communication and a common understanding of what the vision and what the goal of the company is, show
Yeah.
people where they fit in, what difference
Mm-hmm.
they make. And then when you have those people who are fiefdom creators and seek to use that kind of thing against you, they need to work somewhere else.
Well, and yes, absolutely. And it doesn't have to be with an employee. It can be with an outsourced partner. It can be with your installer that you outsource installs to. It can be with, someone who can kind of hold you hostage in a respect. Your IT department that's outsourced, right, is an example. So just be mindful of that. I think, again, silos aren't created overnight. It's something that they build and build and build. And so just be mindful. Hey, man, where is my business being siloed? Where are departments being created, or where is information not accessible by other people? Where is there a disconnect between our team, or between us and our clients, or us and our from our sales to our production risk? Where are the silos that exist, and how can we start to create processes where there's more collaboration, there's more connection between the groups, and just be thinking about those at all times. I think the best leaders are aware of silos. They see where there's a disconnect between the team, and they try to foster more collaboration. So that's, if you're the leader of your business and you're trying to guide it, break down the silos.
Yes, sir.
Well, thanks. Hopefully this was a helpful episode, gets people's wheels turning and thinking about ways they can continue to improve their business so they have less stress, more time, and more money, like we talk about. Go and subscribe to us on YouTube, listeners. We'd love to have your support there. Just run over. If you're not listening on there now, just click on the subscribe button, like some of our videos as well when you see them, and then share this episode with anybody that you think could benefit from it. This is a really good one to share with your employees to help them understand what a silo is and what silos they may be creating or living inside of in their work. So yeah, thanks, Martin.
You're welcome, sir. Talk to you later.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to The Cashflow Contractor. Check out our website in the show notes, or visit thecashflowcontractor.com.